We've been doing a study on apologetics, Bible apologetics, and probably going to finish it up this morning, I hope. And I have no idea where I'm going from here. I've got some ideas, but we'll probably finish this up this morning. What we were doing last week was we were going through some of the prophecies about Christ's first coming, where you have the Old Testament prophecy and then you have the New Testament fulfillment. And these are just things that you can use. You write them in the back of your Bible. It doesn't even have to be that, write out some long thing. You can say, sold for 30 pieces of silver, Zechariah 11, verse 12 to 13, which turn there, and fulfilled in Matthew 26, 14 and 15. And that way you can show them some things from the scriptures that this is not some ordinary book, and it's not a book of just philosophy. There is a Bible philosophy in it, but there's it's just not some book about good living. And some Christians think that's all that the Bible is about. They know little or nothing about apologetics, and that's a shame. But in Zechariah chapter 11, verse 12 and 13, now this is about 490 years before Christ. It says, "And I said unto them, if ye think good, give me my price, and if not, forbear. So they weighed for my price 30 pieces of silver. And the Lord said unto me, cast it unto the potter, a goodly price that I was prized out of them. And I took the 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord." Now turn to Matthew 26, verse 14 and 15. In fact, there are two passages there, but Matthew 26, 14 and 15. "Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went unto the chief priests and said unto them, What will ye give me, and I will deliver him unto you? And they coveted with him for 30 pieces of silver." And then in Matthew 27, 7, this is when Judas decides to take the money and give it back and try to get them to stop what they're doing. And he throws it on the ground. And it was blood money, so the priest couldn't take it back. So in Matthew 27, 7, it says, "And they took counsel and bought with them the 30 pieces of silver, the potter's field to bury strangers in." Now, you got to admit, that's pretty good. It tells you the amount in Zechariah, and it also tells you that they cast it unto the potter for a potter's field. And that's 490 years. That's how much time elapsed to fulfillment. And this is just, we've been going through these and the previous ones. If you were here, if not, we have them. You can watch the video online or whatever and get those references. Psalms 35:11. Psalms 35:11. Psalms 35:11 says, "False witnesses did rise up. They laid to my charge things that I knew not." As somebody accuses you of something, you're like, what? You have no idea what they're talking about. You wouldn't think, I've always wondered why people would do that. I guess under circumstances you get caught, but it's because they hated him that they made these false witnesses, or that they made these false charges. And look at Mark 14, verse 56. Mark 14, verse 56. Now you're talking from Psalms to the Gospel of Mark, or till the time frame, it's 1,033 years or so, over 1,000 years. And it says, "For many bear false witness against him, but their witness agreed not together." And they had a hard time. I mean, a lot of charges were being brought against him, but nothing stuck because the witnesses didn't agree with one another. And there's a law of witnesses found in I believe it's the book of Deuteronomy, where you have to put somebody to death, you have to have 2 or 3 witnesses. And they've got to agree. Anything less than 2, you can't put somebody. You couldn't put somebody to death for just one witness. It's just not allowed. So 2 or 3, and they couldn't get 2 or 3 to agree on anything, and they just kept making the same charge. And finally, a couple guys came forward, and I think it was about the temple that he said he could build it in 3 days. I'm thinking, what crime is that? You know, a guy thinks he can build something in 3 days. I mean, you know, they were trying to make hay out of that. Well, he must think he's God. Well, yeah, he was God. The things what they actually condemned him for was saying that he was God. Yep. That's what they ended up condemning him for. And why Pilate would allow any Jew to put anybody to death? Because let's say he was just a delusional individual. Is that somebody? We have people walk around today and say they're God. I mean, we don't put them to death for it. We might get them some help, get them some treatment. But Jesus Christ he's got the signs and wonders. He's got the prophecies. He's got everything. I mean, whatever God said, he said the Messiah that's coming, this is what he'll do. And Jesus Christ did every bit of it, right down to the letter. And they didn't receive him. You know, it says the common people received him gladly, and it started off like that. It's when the rulers, you know, the same way with this country, there's about half of this country that they're either I don't know what to think about it. I don't know if it's ignorance or wickedness or both. But they have just been completely, their eyes have been covered, and they're just following along. You know, I believe in government, but take as little as you need and not announce more. I believe in government. Romans 13, I definitely do. I believe in authorities. I definitely do. But have as little of that as you can in a nation. Because what happens is the more you get, the more corruption you get with it. And because what? People are running the government, and people are wicked and sinful. And, you know, that taste of power and everything. Anyway, so you have that fulfilled where he's accused by false witnesses and false accusations brought up against him. Look at Isaiah chapter 50, verse 6. Isaiah 50, verse 6. Like I said last week, these are kind of all over the place. So they can't accuse you of just one book of the Bible or one book of the Old Testament where you find all the prophecies. You find it throughout and at different time frames. This would be like 730 years before Christ. That's how much time would have elapsed when this was fulfilled. He says there in Isaiah 50, verse 6, I gave my back to the smiters and my cheeks to them that plucked off the hair, pulled out his beard. And I hid not my face from shame and spitting. They mocked him, they spit on him. Notice that the whole thing there, man, just laid out there for you. You've got the scourging, and then you've got where they pulled off his beard, then you got where they're mocking him and spitting in his face. And you're going to need more than one verse to show the fulfillment of all these. I've got a few of them here. The first one, look at Mark 15:19. Mark 15:19. And it says there, and they smote him on the head with a reed and did spit upon him, and bowing their knees worshipped him. They're mocking him. Excuse me. Now you have two references where the Lord himself says, this is what they're going to do to me. And Mark 10:34, I'll read it to you. It says, and they shall mock him, and shall scourge him, and shall spit upon him, and shall kill him, and the third day he shall rise again. And then in Luke 18, verse 33, it says, and they shall scourge him and put him to death, and the third day he shall rise again. So there's where it talks about the scourging. In Luke 23, now you don't have to use all these verses, but Luke 23, verse 14, This is where Pilate says, said unto them, ye have brought this man unto me as one that perverteth the people. And behold, I, having examined him before you, have found no fault in this man, touching those things whereof you accuse him. And then I believe, verse 22. And he said unto them the third time, why, what evil hath he done? I found no cause of death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go. Now, I wasn't sure which one of these, where he says in verse 14, I having examined him, where he's talking about, where he's talking with him and questioning him, or when they're beating him with a cat of nine tails. Because that's in Acts 22:14. Look what it says there. But it says, when he says, I'll chastise him, I'm almost thinking that might be where he's talking about the whipping. But in Acts 22:44, oops, that won't work. 14, okay, thank you. And he said, the God of our fathers have chosen thee that thou shouldest know his will. No, that's not right. Maybe it's chief captain, that's it. Chief captain commanded him to be brought into the castle and bade that he should be examined by scourging. So I wasn't sure which one of those verses in Luke dealt with being examined by scourging. But he says, I'll take him and chastise him. That may be the where he's talking about the whipping that he takes. And it would have been 40 stripes save one, 39 stripes. So those verses talk about him being spat upon and smitten and whipped. And then Psalm 35:19. And somebody might look at this and say it's a subjective. It's, but it's not if you read the Gospels. Psalm 35:19. Let not them that are mine enemies wrongfully rejoice over me, neither let them wink with the eye that hate me without a cause. Bible talks about somebody winking at you, but they don't have your best interest at heart. Just give you a little. I think that's what he's talking about. But he says they hate me without a cause. And in John 15, turn to John 15, verse 23 to 25. A little context there. He said, John 15, verse 23 to 25, he that hateth me, hateth my Father also. If I had not done among them the works which none other man did, they had not had sin. See, when he shows up with those signs and wonders, that is exactly what Moses said. This says, the Lord your God shall raise up a prophet like unto me. And Moses had signs and wonders. So when he shows up with those signs and wonders, condemns them. He said there, they had not had sin if he hadn't showed up with the works. But now have they both seen and hated both me and my Father. But this cometh to pass, that the word might be fulfilled that is written in their law, they hated me without a cause. That's 1,000 years old. And then the last one here, Isaiah 53, verse 12. And I think this one is, if you show them these ones about the being sold for 30 pieces of silver and buying a potter's field, and this last one, where it says he's numbered with the transgressors, and you don't get some light in the guy's eye, you don't see something there, he's a reprobate. He can't judge. He's failed completely everything God has put before him, and we're going to be talking about that in our main service. But God gives you so many things as a witness. Even the creation itself is a witness, and your conscience is a witness. The Scriptures are a witness. There's all kind of witnesses, and at a certain point, when you fail each test, you're reprobate. Now, I'm not saying you're done just because you're a reprobate. God has a lot of ways of convincing even a reprobate. But that's what a reprobate is. He's failed to see the truth in something. And this is true here. In Isaiah 53:12, He said, therefore will I divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he hath poured out his soul unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors. And he bare the sin of many and made intercession for the transgressors. That's in Isaiah 53. We've looked at that passage as being a good passage to witness to Jews. Well, that thing's about 740, 750 years old before it was fulfilled. And it was fulfilled in Matthew 15. Turn there. Mark. Sorry, my bad. Mark 15. Look at verse 27 and 28. It says, and with him they crucified two thieves, the one on his right hand and the other on his left. And the scripture was fulfilled which saith, and he was numbered with the transgressors. You know? I don't know how people that hear this, you know what the problem is? They're not hearing this. They're not getting this in Sunday school. They're not getting it in church. I mean, at least it doesn't seem that way. Because if I'd have heard this stuff when I was a kid or even when I was a teenager, I mean, it would have, unless my eyes were just shut and blinded to it, I think it would have woke me up. I think it would have made me at least consider, hey, how did that book know that? So sometimes people, they just need a little bit of this to kind of open their eyes. And if there's something there, and I mean, they're searching, or at least they're open to it. I wouldn't say that I was actually actively searching. I was just waiting. I just remember just like waiting, to find out the answer to life. Because, I knew I didn't have it, and I knew that there was nobody that was talking to me and teaching me that had it, especially in a public school. So I was just kind of waiting, I don't know, maybe most people don't think that way, but I thought that life was pretty vain even as a teenager. I thought, what's this all about? You live, 70, 80 years, 100 if you're lucky, and then you die? And then they forget about you within a year? It just, how can that be? There has to be more to it than that. And if somebody had taken me through the Bible and showed me this, if I'd have had this, and I can remember this little church down the road, and I don't know why my mom took us. Maybe she thought, I got to get these heathen in church, referring to her children. And we went to this little Baptist church down the road, and I remember how bad I hated it. We got put into this little room. There might have been 5 or 6 of us at the most. And we were put in this little room, and these walls were just bare. It just felt like it was an interrogation room. There was nothing I can remember that I heard that meant anything to me. The main message, I don't even remember it. But I know that my mom tried on a couple of occasions, and it just went badly. And I think it's bad enough. I mean, you got limitations in a building. You do the best you can. Sometimes you do put people in smaller rooms. You don't wish you had to do that, but it just works out that way. But it's really the content of what you're giving folks. And if you're not giving them anything, or you're just cherry picking a few verses, and trying to make them feel good, that's not always what they need. I just wish someone had had the knowledge to take me aside and say, hey, you ever considered that book? You ever looked at some of the things that's in that book? Because I hadn't. It might have been an eye-opener. So you can do that. You take some of this stuff, and even if you only take 3 of the best ones, it's not an all-day thing, where you got to bog them down with stuff, but just 3 of them, and you know them pretty well. You know where they're at, or you've got them cross-chained in your Bible, and where you can go to them and just show them. See what kind of reaction you get. If you don't get any reaction at all, like, then you're dealing with someone that really doesn't want any truth. They want their truth. They want their life, their way. It's called being very selfish. And they're not interested in what you have to offer, even if it came with signs and wonders. You know, the charismatics, I don't know, they think if they tell you about some sign and wonder that you're all going to come down to the altar. Here's a nation that had signs and wonders for 3.5 years of raising the dead. Lazarus is walking around, and it said that the Jews wanted to kill him too. Why? He was walking around. What are you going to do with that? And then he said he does all these signs by Beelzebub. I mean, and that was blasphemy. So sometimes it doesn't matter what you give them. There's no, it's the individual's free will and what they're willing to accept. And you can't force it on them. I mean, God knows Baptist preachers have tried, man. I mean, I've 45 minutes standing there at an invitation. I'm about to fall out, man. I'm thinking, where's this sinner at? I'll help him. I'll put a gun to his head. We'll get him down there. But you just, you wait and wait, and they're grabbing the pew, and sometimes it works. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of times you're just sitting there just waiting for somebody that's not coming down. So, and the Lord knows all that. And the Lord, like I said, He's the great convincer. He really is. And that's where you got to put your trust in Him, that He's going to do, when you're praying for somebody, He's going to do everything He can to get them saved. He's not going to press too hard, but He's not going to press too light. It's just going to be applied the way He wants it applied. But here's something, give them just something to think about. I had a guy one time that kept a gospel tract in his wallet and said he was going to get saved just before he died. I can't remember his name, and more than likely he never got a chance. He got hit by a train or a boat or a plane or, I mean, he probably died instantaneously, I don't know. That's not the way to do it. It's really not. But I had another guy that I was following around every time he went to the hospital for a heart attack. I'd show up at that hospital and I'd talk to him and ask him if he's ready. No, not yet, not yet. Next thing you know, I get a phone call. And it was over here at Greene County Hospital. And they said, Pastor Thomas? I said, yes. They said, well, there's a man here that wants to see you right now. And they told me his name. His name's Bill. He said, he wants to see you right now. I said, okay. So I ran over there, and he's laying there. I don't know what they were going to do for him. They wasn't going to do much, but they said, this is it. And when I walked into the room, I didn't have to say a word. He goes, I'm ready. Led him to the Lord right there on that gurney, and he got saved, and he was dead within 2-3 days. He was unconscious within 24 hours when I talked to him. So you just never know. And I thought, I'm wasting my time. I'm running around here. I mean, it seemed like he changed hospitals every time I turned around. I was running to this one, running to that one, but he ended up getting saved. So you never know how the Lord will work. But I can tell you what, I was laying a lot of things on him. We would talk he would talk to me. I'd go over to his house. Before this, I'd go over to his house and sit there and talk to him. And he was open, so I kept coming back. But he just wasn't getting saved. But boy, he was ready then. I'll tell you, I thought, boy, you don't know, you better thank the Lord when you get there, because you're a brand plucked from the burning. All right, so here's some other things that you can bring up. And that is, you can't explain the types and pictures in the Bible other than God did it. For example, Genesis chapter 22. Look at Genesis chapter 22. This is about a man and his only son. And he's the son of his father's old age. Jesus Christ is the son of a father who is the Ancient of Days. So, and after a while, you see these pictures and they're over and over and over and over again. and the time gap between those things, there's just no way. No way you can get around it. So you can talk to him about that. Look, in verse 2 it said, Genesis 22:2, and he said, take now thy son, thy only son Isaac. Now actually that wasn't Abraham's only son, now was it? Didn't he have Ishmael? But you know what? God never recognized Ishmael, son of the bondwoman. He didn't even count that guy. He said the son of promise is not the son of a bondwoman, but the son of promise was in Isaac and of course Sarah. So he said, take now thy son, thy only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I shall tell thee of. Okay? And wouldn't you know that mountain that he goes to, they call it Mount Moriah. That mountain is Jerusalem. That's where the temple is and everything. That is the area where David bought from Ornan the Jebusite, that area where he made that sacrifice to stop that curse on the people. You know where that area is? Right where that temple is sitting right now, where that sacrifice is made, and right there in the area where Jesus Christ was crucified. I mean, we're talking about the place, the circumstance, a man and a father and his only son. Then notice in verse 6, and Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son. He's got a burden of wood on his back. That sound familiar? Where Jesus Christ is carrying his cross. And he took the fire in his hand, the knife, and he went both of them together. 2 Chronicles 3:1, this just to throw something in, this is what I was talking about. It says, then Solomon began to build the house of the Lord at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah. See, all this stuff's cross-referenced. You know, your Bible's just kind of laid out. All the information's there that you can show somebody. It's in that mountain. And Solomon began to build the house of the Lord at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah, where the Lord appeared unto David his father, and the place that David had prepared in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. All right there in the verse. That excites me to no end. I'm just like, wow, but hopefully some sinner will see it. That where he took him, where he told him to take his son, where he told him to offer his son, is the same place where God's going to offer his only begotten son. Well, I'd get saved all over again. I don't want to get saved every week, but if I had eternal security from the first time, I get saved every week. I think it's exciting myself. But, how about turn to Exodus chapter 12, verse 7. Exodus 12, verse 7. This is that situation with the Passover lamb. Now, there's so many pictures and types in that whole entire thing, but no, I take that back. It's not the Passover lamb. It's the death angel coming through. It's the last plague. And actually, this is when they do have the Passover. I take it back. They do have the Passover lamb in this chapter. But the first thing they were to do was take that blood, and in Exodus 12:7, they were to hit the doorpost with it. And there are three things. They're to strike it in three different places, on the sides and on the top. So you have these blood picture there. Now, one of the things that I originally heard, like Joe was just motioning, I originally heard that pictured the cross, which it will. The blood from here to here to here and dripping down, you have a cross. But you also have three individuals that are crucified with one set forward. Think about it. Because when they break his legs, when they break the thief's legs, they came to him and he was already dead. Well, why, if he's in the middle, how could they come to him last? Because either he was set back or he was set forward. And they went to one thief and break his legs, and went to the other thief and break his legs, and then when they came to him, he was already dead and they didn't break his legs. And of course you have that pictured up there on that post, on the two side posts and the top of the door. where they were to apply that blood. And the one in the middle, that was God's blood, Acts 20:28. And it also would show the mode of death, crucifixion. You think about it, he had the crown of thorns on his head, and then he had his side, and of course the blood would have dripped down where his feet. You just have all kinds of pictures there. And then the Passover lamb itself, and that lamb of the first year without blemish, and you would eat it, and it would be roasted with fire, picturing him going to hell, and also picture him taking our judgment. And you were to eat it with bitter herbs. The gospel message is a bitter message. It's a hard pill to swallow. There's just so many things. You can read Exodus 12, and man, you're just reading down through there, and it's just amazing. And how would the Bible know all those things in picture? And we're talking 1,500 years before he ever showed up, where John the Baptist says, "Behold the Lamb of God, which taketh away the sins of the world." And then this one, Genesis, this is a long one. You'd have to kind of combine this and just make a few notes. Genesis 37 to Genesis 50. It's about the life of Joseph. The life of Joseph will match the life of Jesus Christ in 152 particulars. I have never seen this list. I've seen partials of it. I would love to have the whole list. And I think a lot of it could be considered subjective because it talks about how they hated, envied, and betrayed him. But that all happened to Jesus Christ. He was envied. He was hated without a cause. He was betrayed by Judas. So it fits. But people could say, well, that happens to everybody, sometime. But there are things about Joseph. He is a shepherd, betrayed by his brethren. Didn't they cry out, "Crucify him"? Didn't he say he's the good shepherd? And they were the sheep. He was betrayed by his brethren. I mentioned he's hated, envied, and betrayed by his brethren. And all those are specific. They hated him without a cause. They envied him. The Pharisees envied him because he had signs and wonders, he had power. And the common people went after him. There's crowds following him around at times. Huge crowds. He is sold by his brethren. They sold him out for 30 pieces of silver to Judas. He is sold to Gentiles by his brethren. They sold him out to the Romans. He's sold for silver, because that's what Joseph was sold for, silver. He is in prison, and he's connected with wine and bread. He said, "I am the true vine." He said, "I am the bread of life." And he found himself in prison. One of the prisoners is hung, the other released. Remember, wasn't it Barsabbas that was released? Yeah, Barabbas. What is it? Barsabbas. Who is that? That's the one that was going for the deaconship, wasn't it? So I was close. No. Barabbas, thank you. He's stripped of his raiment by a whore. Think about that. Joseph tried to get away from... Listen, you know who stripped Jesus Christ and put a purple robe on him, don't you? That whore. You know who I'm talking about. A sacrifice was made. His brethren killed a kid to simulate his demise. Remember, they tore up his coat of many colors and put a bunch of goat's blood on it? They made a sacrifice. Joseph was put in a pit. Picture Jesus Christ descending into the earth. And now, like I said, I couldn't find a complete list. That's where I stopped. There's tons of this. And you just keep finding them point after point after point after point after point. There's no way this is not a supernatural book. There's just no way. And it doesn't matter whether some egghead that's got 5 doctorates, and thinks he's smarter than God. There's no way around this stuff that I'm giving you. You've got the prophecy and the fulfillment of it. It's just the egghead thinks that he is smarter than God, and you just make it say what it said. They're trying to make it say something it doesn't really say. Anybody could interpret all blah 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 blah. I'll end with this. This is the law of jurisprudence that state that if eyewitnesses testify to something they have seen and commit what they have seen in writing, the four Gospels, and it isn't proved conclusively at the time of this committal that they are wrong, then that which they have committed to writing, once it has been testified to, cannot be annulled or overthrown or rejected unless conclusive evidence to prove they are liars is produced. And that's why every scientist and every Christ-rejecting sinner in this world is praying and sweating blood hoping they find one finger bone of Jesus Christ. Just one bone. Because that means they were right, we were wrong. They haven't found it. They're not going to find it. As the angel said, he is not here, he is risen. All right. Any questions or comments about this morning? There's, if you'll get, there's two, Unger's Bible Handbook, and the older the better. I hate the way these Christians revise stuff and then attack the Bible. But Unger's Bible Handbook and Haley's Bible Handbook, I have both of them. And I've had them for 30 years. They deal a lot with the archaeological and the finds there, and you'll find prophecies, I believe, listed there. Also, Stephen St. John has written a book. I forget the title, but I've got that, and maybe we can order some of that if you're interested in it. It's I think, is this $16? Okay. Yeah. Man could not have written the Bible, or he talks about it's an. I can't think of the word. About their faith is an impossible faith. What they believe is impossible because compared to this, they've got it all wrong. They have nothing to back up what they believe in evolution and all that nonsense. And yet we have an entire book full of prophecy and scientific discovery and archaeological stuff that you can't deny. So there's a lot of material out there. I took some of this material from his book. Found some of this very helpful. Yes?
The types of Joseph in Ada Pink's
Gleanings in Genesis? Really? I might have that. Really? He's got all 152? Awesome, man. I'm going to go home and look. If not, whose copy can I take? Okay. Gleanings in Genesis. Okay, I've got a couple of them. I might have that one. All right. Anybody else got a comment or a?
Oh, you stopped right before the verse in Genesis 22:8. Abraham said, "My son, God will provide."
Oh, himself a lamb.